Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Good morning, class. We have come today to look into the subject matter, government. For we to learn this today, we will define government using 3 subheadings. And I want to oblige all of you to give me your attention so that you can understand the concept of what we are about to learn. Don't also fail to ask questions where necessary for clarification and better understanding. We will look into the division of government using 3 subheadings, as I said previously. 1, we'll look into government as an institution of the state. We'll also look into government as a process or the act of governing. And lastly, we'll also treat government as an academic field of study. To start, government as an institution of the state can be defined as the machinery established by the state to organize the state, manage its affairs, and administer its functions and duties. Hence, the need for government came up as a result of people living together, interacting and working together, as well as forming different associations. It has 3 organs with each function made known in the Constitution. For example, the legislature is concerned with lawmaking, executive is concerned with law implementation, and the judiciary is concerned with law interpretation. I would want you to know that before the state came into existence, that man lived in a state of nature where life was brutish and nasty, and because of the hardship that existed in that state of nature, man sought for the need to have a government under which it will surrender all her privileges and rights for the government to lead. That was what came up as a result of people living together, and they surrendered their rights under what they call the Levitian, who became the government in the state of nature, which also is in the origin of the state, as we shall study in our subsequent lectures. So government, the second one, we have government as a process or the art of governing. Government in this case means a body vested with the supreme power of the affairs of a state. A government is vested with the power of maintaining peace and security by putting in place machinery for that purpose. Example of the machineries which the government has put in place to ensure peace and order is the police and other state security agents. We also have government as an academic field of study. This involves the study of political institutions in the states, ideas, values and doctrines about politics, the view of political thinkers on what constitutes the welfare of the people, the social science subject that is taught in schools and colleges, as well as in higher institutions, where it is popularly known as political science. Today we'll see that in the university we have political science as a course which students study for 4 years or thereabout in a bid to make them get acquainted with the ideas, the values, and the doctrines of politics, and also to know the views of political thinkers such as Aristotle, Plato, Jean-Jacques Rousseau about what constitutes the welfare of the people. The study of government embraces international relations, public administration, local government administration, comparative politics, etc. Having known the definition of government and having seen it defined using these 3 subheadings, we will go into the characteristics of government. Before then, does anyone have question? Okay. Since there is no question, we will continue. The characteristics of government. By the word characteristics, we mean the attributes, the features of government as an institution of the state. Number 1, we have law as the first feature of any government. Law is a guide that directs the activities, beliefs, and behaviors of citizens, which is made by the government and also entrenched in the Constitution. In every constitution of every state, you will see the law which guides the behavior of citizens, which guides their conduct, and which guides their beliefs about certain things happens in government. Every government must have this as a feature before it can be called a government. Secondly, we have political power. Political power is the power which the government has in consonance with the people's will to ensure the obedience of laws and policies made by the state. Every government must have this power so as to enable its citizens to obey its rules and regulations, which is poised at ensuring a smooth government and a government where the welfare of the people is being catered for. Thirdly, we have protection. It is incumbent on the government to provide enough security and protection to its people. This the government does by using the police and all other state security agencies, which is ensured or which is aimed at ensuring a government or a state where there is free press, that everybody has his say in the politics of the state. We have revenue as the next one. The government needs money for funding the enormous tax of effectively running the government. Every government that lacks money doesn't run well, because money is very, very important to run every government. The government also has a workforce as one of its features, and the workforce of every government is seen in its civil service, which possesses adequate personnel for policy making and implementation, and also to interpret and to punish those who offend the law. And today we see that in our government, the civil service is in the executive branch or executive organ of government, which is the main working industry that pilots the affairs of every government. They advise the government on some policies which will work in the government, since they are experts in what they do. And also being experts, they form the workforce with which every government must succeed. We have periodic change as the sixth one. No government is permanent, because government comes and goes. And in government, there is a time given for every government to come to an end, which we call tenure system. Unlike today in Nigeria, we have a 4-year term that a governor or a president will stay in office, and at the elapse of these 4 years, he can recontest for a second term of another 4 years, making it 8 years. And this is what we call periodic change. After that, the person in Nigeria, a governor or a president, will leave office and will not contest again under that office. Then the last one, we have what we call legitimacy. Legitimacy is the support which a government earns for itself from the people, which produces peace and stability in a system. Any government that lacks legitimacy lacks the support of the government. Any government that lacks legitimacy also lacks the acceptance, because its laws and principles will not be accepted by the citizenry. So every government that enjoys legitimacy does very well, because the people are in support, and they will also be active in political participation. Having seen the characteristics of government, we will now go to the functions of government. What are the work that a government needs to do for its people? The following are the major functions of modern government. Number one, we have lawmaking. Government is responsible for making laws in a country. Laws are made to ensure peace and order in the society. Legislature is the organ of government responsible for lawmaking. By this, what we mean is that in every state or in every country, those who has the right to make the law that governs that state is the legislature. In Nigeria, as a case study, in the federal government, we have the National Assembly as our lawmaking body. Then in the state government, we have the House of Assemblies of different states as their lawmaking body. While in the local government, we have the councillors who make up the lawmaking body of the local government. Number two, promotion of economic activities. It is the duty of every government to promote economic activities for its people. This is done through the provision of infrastructure, example which we have as roads, construction, railways, airport, etc. and also by encouraging investors. Because according to Aristotle, the greatest want or greatest work of every government is to ensure the welfare of its citizenry. So by promoting economic activities, the people of every government will enjoy the dividends of democracy. They will also live at a standard that is appreciable for their lives to be in terms with what is happening. Number 3, we have provision of social amenities. Amenities like potable water, electricity, health centers, good hospitals are provided by the government because these are necessary for human existence. Every government must provide these amenities for its government for it to be responsible to the government or to its citizenry. We have maintenance of law and order. It is also the function of every government and also its responsibility to maintain law and order in the society. This is performed by the use of governmental agencies like the police, like the State Security Service, like the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, and this is done to ensure a state where everybody is at rest to be able to express itself since there is law and order. Then the next one is protection of lives and property. Government is also responsible to protect the lives and property of its citizenry. Any person can seek the police protection if there is need for it. Provision of employment is the 6th point. Every government whose citizenry are unemployed is not a good government. Job is provided for the citizens by the government. This goes a long way in improving their welfare, because when they have jobs, the living standard of these people will be at a good one, that everybody will be independent of its own to cater for him or herself, and the government will not have much work to do since its citizenry are employed and they have a good job. Lastly, we have the 7th point, to be defense of the country. It is the paramount function of government to defend its country from external aggression. It is the duty of the armed forces of a country to maintain the territorial integrity of the state. Having heard this, we have come to the conclusion of the first chapter of our study under government. We have looked into the different definitions of government as an institution of a state, as an academic field of study, as a process or act of governing. We have also looked into the features of a state. We have also looked into the functions of a modern government. So I am also convinced that having learned all this, that you could be able to answer questions which will be asked you on the definition of government. So on this today, we'll give room for questions so that we can know and ascertain our level of understanding. Does anyone have question? Okay. In the absence of any question, we would go on to the next topic in our study today.